Good afternoon and welcome to Anatomy of a Rescued Project, how Franciscan Health and a key partner turned failure into success, a health system CIO Media Inc. production sponsored by CBTS and Cisco. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. My name is Anthony Guerra. I'm the editor-in-chief of Health System CIO, and I will be your moderator today. We're looking forward to some audience participation. You can send your questions and comments in the Q&A box. We'll take those later in the program. And we're going to do a little one-question poll, get the results, have our panelists guess at the results, and then reveal them. So that should be a lot of fun. Nice way to see the screen. If you click in the top center, get it in side-by-side mode. Then you can adjust the divider to get the slides and the video boxes the size you want. And it should say speaker view in the top right-hand corner. Okay, so you see how we're going to spend our time today. We're going to go about 35, 40 minutes with our main panel discussion featuring our good friend, Chuck Christian, VP of Technology and CTO with Franciscan Health, Dustin Leek, CIO of the Healthcare Practice at CBTS, and Paul Howard, Regional Sales Director with CBTS. So let's jump right in. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation, and we're going to learn a lot. So, Chuck, let's start with you. Can you give me an overview of your organization and your role?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Franciscan Health is a 13-hospital system with hospitals in Indiana, Illinois, and physician practice locations in those two states and Michigan. Overall, we have probably almost 400 different locations. We have about 29,000 employees, and we do acute care, and we have rural critical access hospitals. And the main focus is taking care of patients and stuff. In my role as the Vice President of Technology and CTO, I have responsibility for all of the infrastructure, which includes all the data centers, the servers, the networking, the phone systems, and I'm just kind of the chief cook and bottle washer from the technical standpoint. So having a great time. Been with Franciscan for about 20 months now, almost.
Very good, Chuck. Dustin?
I'll let Paul hit the overview of CBTS, but my role within CBTS is I lead the CBTS healthcare practice, where I leverage my 15-plus years of experience leading healthcare IT organizations to help our healthcare customers with strategic and operational business objectives.
Very good, Paul. You can just go with the role. If I think we heard about the organization.
Sure. The role, I was drafted or volunteered into this role. Yeah, right, Chuck.
Drafted is good term.
To assume accountability for turning around a troubled program. And actually, I don't know if you heard much about CBTS.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to slip a joke in there, right? So CBTS is an IT solutions and services provider. We're a subsidiary of Cincinnati Bell. And I like to say we are the last Bell if you don't count Taco Bell. But we've been in the communications business since 1873. So that is not a misspeak. That is actually the truth. We're headquartered in Cincinnati, but we've got a strong national presence and global reach. So that's my little pitch right there.
That's a very good pitch. Excuse me. Chuck, we're going to start with you. Can you now we're going to talk about a particular project and get some lessons from it. So you want to describe the project that we're going to discuss. What was the objective? When did you first become involved with the project? Because that people have to think about that in terms of this kind of issue. Not everyone was there from the beginning, right?
That's true.
So what were your first impressions? Right. So that's I'd like to know from all of you when you sort of came in, what you saw. But Chuck, lay it out for us.
Sure. When I joined Franciscan back in April of 2019, one of the things that they had decided to do was we have about 13 or 14 or that time legacy PBXs throughout the entire enterprise, and it was cobbled together, and that's my phrase, connected together in order to provide a enterprise phone system. And the IT leadership under Bill Laker and a few others made the determination to move to a different solution. They put out an RFP. They did a review. CBTS was the winning bidder to implement an enterprise-wide voice over IP solution based upon Cisco's technology. And so when I joined, being the CTO, having responsibility for telecommunications, it basically says, here you go, get this done. It had been in the works for probably a year or more before I joined the organization. Not a lot was done. Very, very few phones had been turned over. And so we started working that, trying to get it moved forward, and didn't go real well. And so the thing that Charles Wagner, who's our CIO, he and I had a conversation with the president of CBTS at that time, and we explained that this was not going well. It was a multi-million-dollar endeavor, and if you can't right the ship, we'll have another partner. In just about that way, we were very. I'm a pretty pragmatic guy, and so and I'm one-dimensional. If you don't like what you see, you're not going to get anything else. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. So, which doesn't sound real like me, but I try to speak the truth. And one thing, and I'm going to give you some blue-collar wisdom. We talked about that just a minute ago. Two things my daddy told me that I was given that nobody can take away from me. One is my integrity. The other is my word. And when I give my word away, I need to make sure I keep it. So that's kind of the approach we took with this project. And so that's when I was introduced to Paul and introduced to Dustin. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the dynamics of how this, how we took a project that was, in the ditch, over the cliff, not working very well. We had two teams, my team, their team, that were, animosity is sometimes too light of a term.
Wow.
They didn't like each other. It was pretty obvious that we were not going to have success, and so that was very troubling to me. So, Paul, I'll let you jump in, and Dustin, and add anything else to the recurring commentary.
Well, I certainly would agree with that, Chuck. I remember that initial meeting I had with you. It was very uncomfortable, but certainly you and Charles laid down the law for us, and we knew what kind of challenge we had. But you're exactly right about the team. Team chemistry is a big deal, especially with cross company teams that have to come together for a unified goal. And we were just struggling. One of the awful jokes that someone told about this thing is that for this program, we had so many come to Jesus meetings that Jesus started declining them.
This is true. This is true. So, yeah, absolutely. So the thing about it is, there is a massive number of lessons learned. Paul actually used this project as part of a master's class that he's working on right now. I think that some of the things that we had to work through is around partnership and relationship. I've been doing healthcare information technology as a CIO and CTO for well over, 30 something years. I don't like the term vendor because that means it reminds me of somebody that's got pots and pans in the back of a mule cart that's selling stuff out of. I don't want to buy that stuff. I want a business partner now. And you have to understand that a enterprise telephone system it can make and break an organization. It has to work and it has to function. It has to be bulletproof. The phone system and the network, two of the most prized possessions that I have the pleasure of overseeing, they both work off the same thing. If our network's not up, once we get this phone system in, our phone systems are not going to work. And CBTS's network is not functional, and their infrastructure is not functional. It's not going to work. But that was not the meat of the issue. The issue was people. It was relationships. And in my humble opinion, we had the wrong people trying to lead from both directions, both from my side and Paul's side. And so we kind of interjected ourselves into the process and made some adjustments in the team makeup, in some leadership roles, and the other thing is that we agreed to work very, very closely together and to tell each other like it was. And neither one of us that I'm aware of has pulled any punches. If Paul will tell you that inside CBTS, their senior leadership, all the way up to his boss's boss, has watched the metamorphosis of this implementation and has commented on it. And unfortunately, Paul now has some additional responsibilities because he's done such a great job on their end. I don't need any more responsibilities on my side. But I'm sure that Paul has lots of bandwidth. So,
yeah, right.
Let me get some thoughts. Let me get some thoughts from Dustin.
Yeah, I was just going to add. I don't know if everybody heard Paul Howard make the comment earlier, but all three of us were new to this project. We all walked into it through, when it was halfway, in the middle. And I think that Chuck's point about us having these frank conversations from the very beginning, I think all of us realize the only way this is going to get better is if we all start telling each other the truth. Yep. You can take the approach from the CBTS side that the customer is always right. But, I, having been a CBTS customer for the exact same solution in my past life, understood that, sometimes I'm wrong. And I need a partner that's willing to tell me, hey, look, I'm not trying to call your baby ugly, but in order for both of us to succeed together, we have to be able to have these frank and honest conversations. And I think that was one of the keys to just starting this anew and getting it off the rails.
Yeah, I think the thing about it is, if we had not realized that the baby was ugly, together, that we wouldn't have be where we are. Now, the other thing too is, I don't want anybody in the audience to believe that it's all sunshine and rainbows. In good Southern English, it ain't. We're putting in a phone system. We're putting phone systems in hospitals, physician practices, in a lot of different, very small, very large places. It's hard work. We have a lot of people involved in this, and the only way that we're going to be successful, just like Dustin said, we have to tell each other the truth, and we need not be afraid of it, right. Because if we fail, we fail. That it's both of us. It's Franciscan from a healthcare standpoint, and I take my job and the pleasure of helping move forth the ministry of the sisters very, very seriously. And we have to have that technology to do that. And so we just have to keep being honest with each other and moving it forward.
Well, just to reinforce that, sorry, Anthony, I saw you just talk, but
go ahead. No.
It's funny that you mentioned ugly baby there, Chuck, because when I delivered my assessment to my boss's boss, a few weeks into this thing, I called it the ugly baby report. So, but the thing I wanted to mention is that very early on, in the first couple of meetings I had with Chuck, Chuck told me, I don't want excuses and I don't want apologies. I just want, performance. I want results.
I like that.
Yep.
And we chose to trust each other, right? I believe trust is a choice because you don't have time to earn it, right? So we chose to trust each other and reveal dirty laundry and give each other the unvarnished truth. Um, and just like he says, we haven't held back, and I think that galvanized our relationship and allowed us to show the team how to unify themselves.
Yep.
I mean, we were um, things like on project team meetings, status meetings. I think Chuck and I did what I call intentional banter to show the cross company team that we were aligned and that we had common goals. And I think that that symbiotic relationship made an impact on the unified team, and that was a big part of it too.
I want to back up a little bit. Chuck, take me, just my personal curiosity, take me through you coming into the organization, and I guess you have a pile of stuff and projects, and people hand them to you. Everyone say, oh, here's what's going on with this, here's what's going on with that.
The beeping sound of the dump truck was extremely loud, yes. Big
right,
dump,
right.
That's not true, but yeah. I knew what I was walking into.
You pick up these things one at a time, and you're saying you're looking at them and trying to decide in what condition the project is.
Yep.
How quickly after you picked this one up were you disturbed by what you saw, and why? Because I can imagine you picking up some and you go, this looks okay, this one looks fine, this one, I mean, was it just boom, this is a problem? Was it like almost on fire?
Yeah, it was a dumpster fire. I mean, I think everybody involved with it. I mean, the thing about it is me new to the organization, not only because they never had a CTO before. I'm their first one. From a senior, vice president level position, I work for corporate, and I work for Charles. And so the organization trying to learn me trying to learn my leadership team, all the way down to the managers who were working on this project, and then understanding what level of expertise and how we were staffed, and then looking at just the contract for this was not a small thing to wade through, because it was a lot of stuff built into it. We're putting out, about the end of the day, we're going to be moving out 25, 30,000 phones, or profiles as we now call them. That's not chicken feed. And so, it didn't take just a couple of meetings to listen to, there was a basket full of excuses being emptied out and refilled every time the group got together. And there was a massive amount of finger pointing, and there are people in my office and conversations we were having. And it didn't take me long, very long at all, to realize that we had a dumpster fire, and throwing water on it there was oil inside the dumpster. You throw water on it, it's just going to make it worse. And so we had to take a different approach. And that did mean having some candid conversations with leadership, because it's kind of hard for me to go into my new boss and say, hey, this thing's on fire, and then and Charles is the kind of leader that if you walk into him with an issue without a solution, he's going to give you one. Which is fine. I mean, we've gone through a lot of stuff, and I like that about Charles, and the fact, so I know now when I walk in the room, and I lay out a problem. Here's how I think we need to address it, and he sends me forth, and just make sure that you're successful. And then there are times that I needed his senior vice president presence in that room to have that conversation, to make sure that the conversation that we're having carried the weight of the senior leadership for the organization. So didn't take long.
Dustin and Paul, you're watching this. I'm assuming you're monitoring, and again, you have to refresh my memory on when you each came into it. But from your point of view, you're seeing this project not go the way you want it to be going. You're frustrated because I'm assuming you felt you weren't getting the proper engagement from the other side. What does a vendor do in that situation when, again, you're frustrated with your client?
So
Dustin, you want to go first?
Sure. So I had a unique perspective. I've only been working with CBTS for 2 years, and as I mentioned earlier, I was sitting in Chuck's seat 2 years ago, not necessarily at Franciscan, but a different health system. Together with Paul and our internal team, I was able to educate them a little bit about and help them be more aware about here's what the customer sees. This is what they care about. As I mentioned in my prior life, I implemented the same system from CBTS. So I had already had experience with CBTS's implementation practices, stumbling blocks that we hit as an organization. And so, Paul and I think, to use an older term, ham and egg it pretty well. And that, Paul really had the lay of the land of CBTS. I was new to CBTS, and really what I could offer internally was my perspective as a customer that had been in Chuck's shoes before. Paul, I'll let you.
Well, since I forgot the question, I will echo.
So
Chuck's
Anthony
statements.
forgot it too. So
yeah,
just kidding.
Well, it was easy to see with a very quick, look at the situation and at the program itself that it was finger pointing and it was excuses. So. We had to take that into account. I will mention this too. As Chuck said, we all inherited this program, and it was long in the tooth when we did inherit it. And honestly, some of the folks on the project team were just suffering from fatigue, right? They were just worn out from the lack of success. And the team itself, I believe, didn't think they could win.
We lost Paul. He froze.
Wow, he was making a really good point there too.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that for a second, Chuck. He just used the term. It caught my ear. They were getting sort of depressed and despondent.
Yep.
And he said they didn't feel like they could win. These are all sports terms. This makes me think of a team like the New York Jets or Giants, just to tell you where I'm from, that keeps losing, and they get depressed and they get forlorn and they quit on the coast.
Yeah. So
yeah, right.
One of the things that I've watched, and Anthony, I speak a lot, not as much as I used to, but one of the things you can look at a team and I've watched a couple of professional golfers do this as well, is you can tell when they're playing to win or playing not to lose.
Right.
And then so these teams, both teams were playing not to lose. How do I not get blamed for this? And the other thing too that I know that Paul was probably going to get there is I don't think that either team, their team, our team, there was a vacuum in a leadership role. Is the team did not believe that anybody had their back, and they didn't have a place to go, and everybody, when you're doing these very difficult large projects, you need to understand that that somebody's not rolling out, not building the gallows in the background while you're trying to get this done, and that both members of the team have their hands on the door that's going to drop you down and hang you. So I think it's very important from a leadership standpoint for all the folks to understand is that for these projects to be successful, the team needs to know that they have support. The other thing is, it's like Paul mentioned, I didn't want any excuses, and don't apologize, because we're the only people I've ever known that never fail are the people that never do anything, and we're going to make mistakes. And so we told the teams, look, we're going to screw this up. We're going to make a mistake, and we have made several, and we've got yet several more teed up yet to make. Is let's bow to the east. Acknowledge what we've done, learn from it. Let's not turn our mistake. Let's turn it into experience rather than stupidity. Because what a mistake that keeps getting made over and over again, it's because you're stupid. You can't learn from it. Is that and then let's go forward. Let's celebrate our successes. And I'll tell you about a success that we had. I didn't know that we were going to be able to pull it off or not. We have two large billing offices, one for the ambulatory, one for the acute care. We lovingly call them the ABO and CBO. They're in two different, one's in Hammond, Indiana, and the other one's in South Indianapolis. About 400 or so people. We needed to change their phone system. We needed to change their desktop faxing solution. We needed to change their call recording system, their PCI monitoring system, change their Office from a on-prem Exchange platform to Office 365, and upgrade them to Windows 10 in one weekend. Any of those other projects would have made most of my hair fall out. So we did this with planning. We had lots of boots on the ground. We did a lot of partnership, and I will say that by Tuesday afternoon, we did this. We started on Friday, handing out new equipment, doing training and all that other stuff, checking things out. And by the way, these people were working remotely because of COVID. We sent them home. This was in July the 24th that we did this. This was a Friday. And over the weekend, we did all of that. There was a lot of testing, a lot of prep, and that kind of stuff. But on Tuesday afternoon, we shut down our daily calls because there were no issues that we had to address. And so it goes back to something I learned in the Disney Institute. And I don't know if Walt Disney said this or his brother said it or who said it, but when I was going through the Disney Institute, it kind of stuck with me. It's not the magic that makes things work. It's the work that makes it look like magic. And so the other thing is I had one of the directors of the ABO and CBO basically going on and on and on about the new call recording features, because not only did it record the call, it captured the screens that these people were going through at the same time. And so they could actually, in that afternoon when they learned about that feature, the managers were going out doing real-time education on staff, making them more productive. He couldn't say enough about it. And so it's those kinds of wins that you have to celebrate, for a period of time, but you can't sit on your laurels, and it's basically, what have you done for me this week? And so we're moving forward with other wins as well. So,
Paul, I wanted you to finish your thought about you were talking about the idea of winning. The team felt like they couldn't win. It sounded like a low morale situation. Made me think of a sports team that's not winning. And I guess people, I don't know if they quit essentially on it, but they're just not engaged anymore, kind of like the Jets. But Paul, can you just continue that thought and finish expressing what you were saying there?
Sure. I think because of program fatigue, the team thought there was no way to success. And they really struggled with that and thought they were caught in the abyss and could never climb out. So it was really difficult to kind of get through to them and give them some hope. Because I was injected into it, and I was a sales manager, right? So what does a sales manager know? But little did they know that 36 years of my career, I was doing large scale deployments and operations and support. So I kind of had to prove myself to them, and jointly with Chuck and folks like Dustin. We showed that we were going to go arm in arm at the top and show them how to do it instead of going toe to toe. arm in arm
Yep.
instead of toe to toe.
Yep.
Chuck, can you talk? I'm interested in this concept of morale when it comes to a team, and low morale becoming a problem
Yep.
if it's there that inhibits work. Is that real? I mean, on some level, you say it's a job. You do your job. What do you mean morale? Right? I don't understand, but
Well,
maybe it's a real thing.
yeah, I mean, there's a one of the things that that I'm on the faculty of the Chime CIO boot camp, and one of the success factors I teach from time to time is about how to manage and create high performing teams. And that's basically when the team's able to function and you're not standing over them, like George Washington standing in front of the boat pointing. You get the teams that are dysfunctional and they're not able to see success on the horizon, and they don't see the purpose of their work. There was an author, Patrick Lencioni, who wrote a book called The 3 Signs of a Miserable Job. Those are all very apparent. And the other thing too is that people need to understand what they do, how it connects back to the mission of the organization. What is their worth? And how are they, it's not only personal, but it's also from a team standpoint. And, high performing teams, people don't really worry about, winning individually all the time. They worry about the team being successful. And in both our teams, to form the one team, for the implementation, they were never going to be successful. I firmly believe that. We like I said, it's not all sunshine, rainbows, and roses. We still have those difficult conversations, and Paul and I, we have each other on speed dial. We're texting each other during some of our conversations, and we'll say, man, here's what I heard. I really wish we hadn't heard that, and then so we'll address that after the fact. So we're kind of in sync with propping up these teams, and I think Paul mentioned it. One of the very important things that has leading to the success that we're having is because both teams know that Paul and I talk to each other when we're not on the phone with the team. We have a weekly touch base, and it's no holds barred. And his boss lives not too far away from me. And so we talk, and sometimes we talk about Paul, sometimes we talk about Dustin. I'm just kidding. So it's how we build those relationships, because I think that CBTS understands, as any good business partner was, if their customers are not succeeding, they're not succeeding. Because if somebody calls me and says, last year, this says, so how's the implementation going? Or should I consider CBTS as a business partner? Guess what I would have told them? So
hell no.
Hell no.
CBTS would have lost business, and so there's a revenue opportunity missed. They call me today, and I have done this already. Is and Anthony, me for 20 something years. I'm not going to tell somebody an untruth in order to get somebody to do business with somebody. And sometimes the business partners, and I've done this a couple of times, I'll tell them the bad stuff along with the good stuff, because if they only hear the good stuff, it goes back to another saying that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You're going to have some rough patches, but it's what you do with those rough patches that will make you successful as you go along.
Totally
I want to touch on the CBTS side. Dustin, let's start with you. Through this whole process, I would imagine you've identified, done a postmortem, and said, this is what went wrong. This is in our process, in our program, the way we do things. Here are the steps that were wrong. Here are steps that we're missing. So we don't have this problem again with another customer. And you want to update that, fix that. Has that been done? Have you gone back and looked at the way you do things and said, okay, we saw why it went off the track. Here are the things we need to do so it doesn't happen.
Yeah. So it's been done. I'll say, some of the key themes that came out of it. I mentioned it before, but the customer is always right mentality. And I don't mean to say that the customer isn't always right, but people are buying our services and hiring us to do work because we're experts and they view us as experts. So, I guess the least gentle way to say it is, part of our job is to also not let the customer shoot themselves in the foot. Right. And so, from an engineering perspective, we've got some very strong engineers, as Paul mentioned, our history in engineering. Engineers want to build what the customer is asking for, even though it may not be the best thing in the world. Right. And if you're an IT person and an IT engineer, you look at IT as the solution when maybe IT is not the solution. Maybe it's a workflow change on the clinical side or the business side that's a better solution than engineering it. So I would say that's one. And then the second thing that really came out was around our project management methodology, right? And having honest conversations with our customer about project schedules and project timelines and understanding and being flexible. For example, at a health system, you got to have a backup deployment because if census is too high, there's no way that hospital CEO is going to let you come on the floor and start swapping phones out.
Right.
So rather than leave your people sit on the bench or sit in Indianapolis somewhere doing nothing, what's plan B? Maybe there's a business office that you can do that's closed. So understanding and having that flexibility specifically around, we're talking today about healthcare, but it applies to most verticals, whether it be manufacturing or something else. Always have a plan B so that you can keep the ball moving forward, so that you can stay on schedule.
Paul?
Well, I believe that some of the key elements in the benefits of all of the work that we did from a leadership standpoint did point to some process discipline issues. Mm-hmm. The project management, as Dustin mentioned, this is a complex program. Franciscan is huge, lots of locations, lots of PBXs, contact centers that have third-party applications and functionality that have to be integrated. So discipline in process and overall program management, not only that, but engineering discipline as well. So that was a big part of it. And the turnaround was injecting a couple of key folks and getting that discipline back into the right track.
Chuck, I want to back up a little bit. We talked about you coming in. We talked about you looking at the projects and identifying ones such as this one that were not where you wanted them to be. And I want to focus on that first meeting you had with CBTS. So here's what I want you to tell me about. What's the right process there? It sounds like you did your internal due diligence first. Talk to the people in your organization. What's going on with this? Get all the information. And then is it have that come to Jesus meeting if he accepts? Remember we made that joke? He wasn't accepting anymore. If he accepts the meeting. So what's the best process? What did you do? And do you feel like that was the best practice in terms of gathering the information and then having the meeting, laying it out there? And then I want to go to Dustin and Paul and talk a little bit about any pushback you had in that meeting about, hey, well, you're right, but here are some other things that you may not know about. So Chuck, you first.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that, getting all your ducks in a row, but, I'm an observational manager, is I like to see what, firsthand rather than, it's not that I don't trust, but, I take Ronald Reagan's approach, trust but verify. I go into the meetings and listen. And try to comprehend what's going on rather than trying to react to what you're being told, because it's not that I don't think anybody was purposely being untruthful, but they see was seeing the activity and the project through their own lens. I wanted to see it through my lens, because I was new to it. I could, be somewhat unbiased, but I have to, I was very protective of my team, and trusting of my team. But the other thing is, I don't like it when people don't give me the opportunity to fix something when I don't know that it's broken. And so, I did not jump right up to the CEO of the organization. I brought in the people that I knew that were leading the teams from the CBTS side, and we started those conversations there. And then, when nothing, I heard, a couple of things. I heard excuses, and I heard some apologies, and then I listened to a couple of other meetings, and then that's when we had a massive failure in a healthcare facility, which was disruptive. It was pretty apparent that the process we were using was not going to work because the hospital we did wasn't that big, and if we couldn't do one well that size, when we got to Indianapolis to the large hospital down there, it was going to be a disaster. And so I like what I do. I love the people I work with. And, I didn't want to lose my job because we were unable to, get this corrected. So that's when we called in, Jeff, and he brought Paul in because Jeff and I had had some conversations over the phone. He knew he knew the tenor of the meeting that we were going to have with Charles before they came in the room. They knew what we were going to say because Jeff and I had already had that that somewhat level of a conversation. And so we just wanted, you can tell somebody something over the phone, but when they're looking at your eyeballs, it has a little bit more weight. And we wanted to be clear about the message that we were going to deliver.
So it was that failure at that smaller hospital that was the big eye-opening moment, and we need to talk. Correct?
Well, it's kind of like the crater. You've got something that is going to go, but you want to you're in denial for a period of time until it actually detonates and there's a smoking hole in the ground that you have to react to. So
that absolutely was the catalyst.
Yep,
absolutely.
So Dustin and Paul, were you both in that meeting that we're talking about?
I don't know, Dustin.
I don't think Dustin was there. It's Paul and Jeff.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Paul, tell me about it. You're going. You know what to expect. You knew about the problems at the smaller hospital. You know
Right.
This is big. This isn't going to be pleasant. So again, let's talk about from the vendor point of view or service provider. Sure. I assume you want to get all your ducks. There was some preliminary information about why the meeting was being called. So you had that.
Right.
You knew there was a meeting being called. I don't know what information you had in terms of what they said why they wanted the meeting. At that point, what do? Are you doing your due diligence internally, trying to prepare for this meeting, almost like prepare your defense? And when you go in that meeting, it's delicate with a customer, right? Because you don't want to yell back, but as Dustin was saying, the customer's not always right. So if there were things that the customer was not doing correctly, you need to present that in a very diplomatic way, so it doesn't come off as, hey, get rid of this guy, right?
Yeah, there was never any yelling, Anthony. There was just focused conversation.
Right.
Chuck, I never want to have such a conversation with you. I tell you, scare me. Go ahead, Paul.
I am the least intimidating person you'd ever run into.
Well, I doubt it. When you're mad, or let's not say mad, but when you're displeased, I would not want to be on the other end of that conversation.
Right.
And I respect you and I love you, Chuck. I just don't want to mess with you. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you very much. I wish. Will you tell my wife that, please?
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, Anthony, I actually entered this after that failure. So in that meeting, it was a little bit of not a shock because I've been through some of these before, but I entered with sparse information about exactly, what the problems were. So I knew I was going to have to, do some digging. And essentially that's what I told Charles and Chuck, that, I do have some experience in this. I know I'm going to have to show you. So, give me the chance to do that. And, it was all about grabbing the team and finding out what was working, what wasn't. And essentially, yeah, Chuck is a great guy, but that first meeting, I considered that an ultimatum. So it was sink or swim. And I think I went back to the team and I said, we're in do or die, folks. We got to pull this thing out. And in terms of giving honest feedback to a customer, after I did some digging, I looked at us and we were playing defense all the time. We weren't on offense at all from a service provider standpoint. We're in an expert kind of role. We should have been playing offense all the time. So I continually talk to my team about get off your heels, act like a professional, act like, we know we're going to win this thing. So that it doesn't become a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure.
Yep. Paul, first off, you use a lot of sports analogies, which is fine. I like that. It's all about teams and winning. Chuck, question to you. When you go through that meeting and things worked out, did you like Paul's approach in that meeting? Did you like the way he handled himself, and what was it about the way he handled that meeting that didn't make you throw them out at that point? He did something right in that meeting that you were like, okay, go ahead, see what you can do.
I don't think it was the meeting, actually, because basically that meeting was pretty brief. Mm-hmm. We were very, succinct. If it lasted 30 minutes, I don't think it did.
It did not.
And so, we were there. We asked them to come up to the office so we could deliver a message. It was the activity that took place after when, Paul and I started doing forensics, and we started sharing observations, mm-hmm. Quite pragmatically with each other about what I'm seeing in his team, what I'm seeing in my team, and he did the same thing. And we came to common conclusions. I never, I never told Paul, here's what I think you need to do with your team, and he didn't do that with mine. Is that we use that information to come to conclusions that leaders have to make sometimes, and changes and approaches. And the fact is that we were doing some things that. And we were running some of our staff way too thin, and we still are, but that's just kind of the way we realize that now. And the other thing is that because we're a large organization, there was too many work streams that were, trying to be done simultaneously. And I had one project manager on our side that was trying to manage all of those. And I remember Dustin, when you were brought in because I kept getting updates, executive updates, and I'm looking at the stuff and I'm going, this doesn't make any sense. This is not the information I need. So Dustin, came in to help the team, the engineering team, to understand what information that I needed as an operational leader. And so, and Anthony, go back to your question. It really wasn't. The other thing is that I don't think that the leadership of CBTS and the leadership of FAIS, say that real fast 3 times, right, had basically met to come to a common understanding of the criticality of the success of this project. And so we did that at that meeting, and then we moved forward for that. And so I think that, from my standpoint, Charles is looking at me to lead this, and I'm not the boots on the ground. I'm not the quarterback. I'm the guy who's I'm the center. I'm running interference for the people that really know what the hell they're doing. I can pick up a phone, I can dial a phone, but I don't know how to install a phone or engineer a phone system, particularly. And the thing about it is that what I don't want anyone in the audience to think that we're just, replacing desk sets. We're not. We're putting in call centers. We have multiple call centers that require call trees and programming, and we're doing integrations with overhead paging systems and switchboard attendants. And this is a very complex beast that we're putting in place. Some of the stuff works really good. Some of the stuff, not so much. We had to actually, to do the replacement of the call recording system, we actually had to, working with our partner at CBTS, go out and engage a third-party developer to develop an API that would turn the call recording on and off appropriately to meet the PCI standards that would go into the Epic Orchard. Guess what? That was not necessarily easy to do. Because now we have a three-way partnership. We're trying to get all this stuff done. And I had one of my architects right in the middle of all this because he had done the original integration, so he knew the programming of it. And so there's so many moving parts in this thing and so many opportunities for failure. What we have to do is we have to call them out and say, hey, I think we have a risk here. What are we going to do about it before we get to the edge of the cliff?
All right, we don't have much time left. I want to get a final thought from everyone. So I want to start with you, Dustin. What is your advice to other vendors who may find themselves in a project that is where this one was before it got fixed up?
Sure. So I know it's easier said than done, but take ownership and partner. In my past life, I spent a lot of time with vendors and manufacturers, listening to some of the things that they were saying. The ones that took ownership, that told me about their warts, that let me work with them and work through it with them, were the ones that I valued the most. To other service providers, to other vendors or VARs, the customers, there's a lot of competition for that customer. And the ones that you truly partner with and can be open and honest with are the ones that are rare to find. And if you can make yourself that person, not only do you benefit, but you exist because of your customer, and ultimately your customer benefits. So that's kind of where I would leave it. It's just be open, be honest. No, not everything is perfect, and be willing to admit that not everything is perfect. The goal is to keep doing things that move the ball forward, not necessarily dwell on the things in the past, unless that helps you not make that mistake again.
Paul?
Well, I would say that it starts with leadership. And, from a customer to service provider relationship standpoint, we succeed more often when we've got a sponsoring executive who is actively participating in the program. And I think we made a huge move forward when Chuck just rolled up his sleeves and jumped into the ditch with me and with CBTS. So that's number one as far as I'm concerned. It's, you got to have that leadership, and if you're building a team and you're building a large program, start there.
Yeah, Chuck, your final thought, advice you'd give to your fellow CIOs. It could be they started the project and it went south. Could be they came in and the project wasn't where it should be. What's your advice to get things back on track?
Well, I mean, never be afraid to call the baby ugly. I mean, I've watched too many people that are unwilling to say we're in trouble because they don't want to fail. And guess what? You've already failed, and you're going to continue to fail until you can, you realize who you are, where you are, and the fact is that you may not be the right person to do this, but have the fortitude to bring, to hand it off to somebody who can. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves. One of the most valuable lessons I learned when I was in, the short time I was SVP and CIO at a hospital in Georgia was being present. We were trying to take 5 EMRs in all these physician practices and turn them into one. And I just started rounding on the physician practices, and I didn't realize it, but I found out a little later that the office manager, as soon as I walked in the door, she went and told the primary physicians and their nurses that I was in the building, and she made sure that they saw me and had a chance to talk to me. It wasn't until about a year of me doing that that I got told by one of the physician leaders how much he appreciated me coming out of my office, driving to his office, and being present in his workplace and listening to their concerns. And I think that that's, we as leaders, we can't lead in a vacuum from our offices. We have to get out and being present in the meetings, even those, my calendar goes from sunup to sundown. But being present is one of those leadership responsibilities we have to be. And the other thing is creating an environment where the collaboration can occur. Because if I had walked into every meeting with Paul and Dustin and Jeff pissed off, and making demands, saying that we're right, you're wrong, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so we have to admit that sometimes I'm the ugly baby, and we're all fallible, and we're all human. We're going to make mistakes. And we just, there's a way to partner in order to make this stuff work. And at the end of the day, our jobs collectively is to make Franciscans successful. And doing that will make CBTS successful, because they're not doing what they do for free, but there has to be value back to the organization. They have to illustrate for us to write those checks.
Wow, that was an excellent conversation. I think we provided some serious value there for our attendees. Regarding continuing education, you can use the final slide in this deck. You'll get an email when the on-demand version is ready for viewing of our webinar. If you want to sponsor an event with us, you can reach out to Nancy Wilcox from our team, and you can go to our website to register for upcoming webinars. With that, I want to thank our panel, amazing panel, Chuck Christian, Dustin Leek, and Paul Howard. And I want to thank CBTS and Cisco for making this event possible. And I want to thank you, our attendees. And with that, everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks very much.